everybody, it's Romania Black, and yes, we're on Kuroko's Basketball. Episodes 21, 22, and 22.5. Don't worry, I can't screw up this extra OVA episode today because it's on Crunchyroll in order. I actually debated, I debated the last several episodes whether or not I watch episodes 21, 22, and 22.5 in that order, but after talking to Zero Anti-Zero on Discord and on Patreon and some others, I think that I'm just going to watch it through because I like the idea of being able to do that chunk and then the final 23, 24, 25 next week to finish off season 1. Crazy, right? Crazy. I still have, of course, before we move on to season 2, we've got the bloopers, we've got the character songs. I need to go through and see what we watch in between seasons 1 and seasons 2 and ask Patreon just to make sure that I'm covering my bases and I don't forget something, right? But yeah, so I think I'm going to watch, Zero Anti-Zero said there had been a chance that you might see like a Generations of Miracles character. They were trying not to spoil me, but they're like, I don't know, it's up to you. But I feel like if I accidentally watched the OVA from season 2, here's my thing. If I start to see anything, and I told people in the Discord this, if I start to see Generation of Miracle characters, specifically the purple-haired one and the magenta-haired one, if I start to see them in the episode, I may just like not pay as much attention and focus on something else because I want to meet them properly in the series. So I've been kind of ignoring them. I've been kind of they're there. I can't avoid them altogether, but I'm just kind of ignoring them right now and being like, when we get to meet you properly, then I'll pay attention. But for the most part, I'm focusing on the other aspects of the episode and trying not to get too worked up with them so that I don't feel spoiled, if that makes sense. But I feel like if Crunchyroll puts it out here in that order, then it needs to be watched. So I don't know. I do have some comments though before we start this set of episodes though. I've come back from a holiday break. This morning I woke up and was like, I really want to watch this series. So, and then I dilly-dallied around all day and now it's the afternoon. So I'm just finishing off my coffee and being like, well, it's fine. I'll get to Kuroko's today. No worries. But I do have some comments before we start. Pritam Ozande talks about how Riko was not comparing herself to Momoy necessarily back a few episodes ago, but to the person who taught her the style that Siren, or as the English dub says it, Serene, plays. I'm assuming that's Kiyoshi now that we've met him. Kiyoshi was the one that taught her the style of basketball that they play. Also, someone in the Discord shared like an English dub clip and they called it Serene. I'm like, have I been saying it wrong this whole time? I thought it was Siren. I guess you all will correct me in the comments, whichever way I'm supposed to say it. I was like, have I been saying it wrong the whole time? I usually am terrible at pronouncing things, so that wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, I gathered that it was Kiyoshi that's taught her that style of play. So I'll be curious if we get confirmation of that with Riko later on in this. Ifat Bushra Sui noted that Imayoshi's character, which is the captain of Aomine's team with the glasses, has the same VA as Mogi from Death Note. And I was like, oh, cool. How nice. I like that. And also noted that Sakurai, Mr. Apology, has the same voice actor as Haru, Mojito, and Yuki Soma, etc. I was like, oh, he's Haru's voice actor? And Mojito's? Interesting. I feel like that voice actor plays like quieter, meeker characters with the exception of Mojito. So that's fun. I liked that. Anime Annie talks about how Sakurai being called Rio by Aomine on a first name basis, huh? Getting all up in his personal space, huh? I was like, just shipping Aomine with everybody, huh? Because that's how we do, right? And then not only that, but that he literally is going to be shipped with everyone and does not understand the value of personal space. No, Aomine does not understand personal space. He's been all up on Kagami. He's been all up on Sakurai. He's been in Wakamatsu's. He just goes wherever he wants and does wherever he wants. Aomine does not understand what personal space means. He's that kind of character. Also made note that Momoy is a Taurus. I can see that. I can see Momoy being a Taurus. I can see it. She's instantly love-struck and goes all in on it. Seems to fit the bill. She seems like she likes luxurious things. Seems to fit the bill. I like it. And Aomine is a Virgo. And I think Kelsey in the Discord said that as well. Aomine is a Virgo. Which is kind of funny because I was telling them in the Discord, in real life, my close circle of friends, we're all Geminis, Tauruses, Virgos, and there's like an Aquarius in there. So I'm like, no, the shipping is all checking off in this series. It's all making sense. I was like, huh, how about that? How about that? And I could see Aomine being a Virgo because I said that one of my really close friends, she's a Virgo. She's kind of salty, says whatever comes to mind. I'm like, but she's very task-oriented. Sounds kind of like Aomine. I'm like, okay, I get it. And then Zero Anti-Zero talked about how Kagame, he could have become like Aomine if he had joined the Generation of Miracles, because he's all about, the idea of being challenged and working with people that are strong, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of Kagame's goals and mindsets about basketball are similar to Aomine's. Aomine's just become jaded by experience, and Kagame has not. And there's this idea that Zero into Zero brought up about results versus fulfillment. Like, is getting the results worth it when you don't get fulfillment from the activity? And that's been a big theme of this series. And I like that. I like that these episodes are kind of touching base on that idea and kind of tying back home to it. Really, really good. So yeah, I like the idea that Kagame could have become like Aomine if he'd been in the Generation of Miracles back in middle school, but he was not. And I would argue, like I have in the previous episodes, that Kagame and Aomine, although their philosophies on basketball are similar, their personalities are very different. So I don't think they would have totally ended up the same way, but who knows? Could be. Chuya's Hat says in episode 14, there's a moment where you see Takau's bag at the restaurant. Midorima grabs it and carries it. I'm like, oh, what a gentleman. I ship Midorima and Takao awfully hard. I really do. I ship them very, very hard. And then ICA, Aika, talks about how Momoe, or KA, sorry, my handwriting. KA says that Momoe's name means both peach, going back to like, I kind of got that Momoe. I was like, okay, we're going back to the name of peach. But also it ties to the color pink, and that she's a Generation of Miracles player herself. She is. She's like a member of the Generation of Miracles. She's the pink Skittle. She is. Is there a pink Skittle? I don't think there is a pink Skittle. Maybe I'm thinking of Starburst. But she's like a member of the Generation of Miracles. At least Midorima and Kise kind of treat her like she is, and so does Kuroko. So, and she was in the intro alongside all of them. So yeah, she kind of is like a Generation of Miracles player. She just can't play. They don't have co-ed basketball, so she's forced to be their manager. Interestingly enough. So thank you, K.A. But yeah, those are my comments. Those are my comments for the episode that we've been doing so far. And I'm pretty excited to dive into these three and see what all we get. Should be a fun time, right? So I've got myself a cup of coffee poured. I was like, you know what? Let's do this. Let's dive into these episodes and see what we get. So I hope y'all are excited. I am too. But we're going to do episodes 21, 22, and 22.5 of Kuroko's basketball. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Aha! Oh! So that OVA was really cute. I liked that a lot. I liked that OVA. It was mainly Kise focused, which makes sense because it's Kise focused because we're about to start getting ready for Kise versus Aomine for what I'm assuming is going to be the rest. I'm assuming the next of these 3 episodes, as Huck is like, here, play with me with this torn up Santa Claus. I'm assuming that the last of this season is going to be Aomine's team versus Kise's team, which is not where I thought we were actually ending this season. So it's fun that we're getting that. That's a good time. It's going to be interesting to round out the season with this game. And what I feel it's going to do is to fuel not only Kise moving forward. I don't think Kise and them are going to beat Aomine. No, I don't think they're going to. I think the quarterfinal is going to go to Aomine's team, I feel. The only exception would be if Aomine gets injured, and I don't see that happening. But I feel like it's going to basically be spurning. It's going to spur on Kuroko and Kagami to get even stronger for the Winter Cup when they face Aomine again, because you know that's going to happen. So there's that. That's fun time. But I do like the OVA when established. I was trying not to pay attention to the other two we've not met. I didn't want to see their abilities, which all we've really seen out of the tall center guy is that he's very tall and imposing. We see that. But yeah, the guy Asahi, the red-haired guy, what the fudge? He looks terrifying and like in the shadows playing shogi. Okay, sure. I'm going to talk about what I think his power is, but first and foremost, if I make theories about the 2 Generation Miracle players that we haven't met yet, I don't want confirmation. Please do not tell me if I'm right or wrong. Let me wait it out until we find out in the actual series. But I'll probably put my theories out there and then y'all can you know, you can laugh at me behind the camera and be like, and then we'll find out if I'm right or not, you know, by next season. Because I don't think we're going to encounter them in the next 3 episodes. Although they may be like surprised and show up at the end of the season, but I don't think so. I feel like they're going to be saved for season 2. I feel like that's going to be a season 2 move. But yeah, let's talk about these episodes. So these episodes went by so quickly. They went by so fast. I was like, really? But there was so much that was happening. I took some good notes on there. But episode 21, this whole set of episodes, 21, 22, and 22.5, should have been just called, Did You Think You Had Enough Ships on Your Plate? Oh no, you want to add more? Okay. Because I was like, there was so much shipping in these episodes. I was like, really? Okay. Starting out episode 21 right off the bat with Riko and Hyuga, like a couple picking where the retreat's going to happen at. I like Hyuga and Riko would pick a training place because they're coach and captain, but it did come across as them being a couple, which I ship them really, really hard. I originally thought going into these episodes, I was like, oh, well, when we found Shutoku at the beach, I was like, oh, is that what we're going to do? Because they said they had a beach training place located to picked out and then a mountain place picked out, and they were going to go to both. And I was like, okay. So my thought was they're going to go to the beach and see Midorima's team, and then they're going to go to the mountains and see Kise's team. I thought that's what we're going to get in this season. And maybe when we go to the mountains, we'll meet another Generation of Miracles player. Maybe the purple-haired or magenta-haired guy will be there. Maybe, we'll see. But that's what I thought was going to happen, and it's not quite done that yet. But yeah, I do like the idea that Kagami and Kuroko, they are talking more. The team's like, well, they're arguing a lot. And I'm like, that's kind of their love language. They're able to like banter and like bounce ideas off and kind of like nag at each other. But they're not mean-spirited about it. It's just them trying to like crack the code and build up their Nakama bonding, you know. And Kiyoshi doesn't seem that concerned about it. He's like, no, they're not passing to one another because they're building that bond and they're also making each other stronger individually so they can come back and work together and that be a more viable option going into the Winter Cup, right? They're keeping it fresh, right? They have their own personal missions to accomplish first before they come together as a team. I like it. But Kiyoshi thinks that they'll be fine, so it's going to be okay. Riko's cooking. Bless her. Poor girl, I feel you. I'm not a good cook myself. Like there's a couple dishes I can make really good and I'm like, I feel so good about it. But then there's a couple that I try and I do the same thing Riko did. I'll try to substitute an item or add another ingredient to the mix because I'm like, oh, that'll be a good idea. It does not pan out. So she learns the hard way, right? I love poor Matobe. Matobe, who is a legit good cook, is freaking out over there being like, why do we have to eat her food? Why? And of course, she's been adding supplements and protein powder. It's very reminiscent of Free in the anime series Free. Go, who is the team manager, she adds there's one episode where she adds a bunch of protein powder to everything and it makes it disgusting. And all the characters are like, why did you do this? And Riko, it's her all the time. But what I like about this scene with her cooking is that she's like, oh, well, if you guys don't want it, it's okay. And you see her fingers like bandaged and everything. And Hyuga looks at her and he's like, you tried so hard for us. And he's like, I'll eat her cooking. Like Hyuga and Kiyoshi, men among men. And at that point I was like, okay, Hyuga and Kiyoshi, they stepped up their game. It's an OT3. I officially, episode 21 cemented that Hyuga, Kiyoshi, and Riko, they are an OT3. Get them a house together. I'm here for it. I'm supporting them. Let them all like adopt a child and raise it together. 3 basketball players and a baby. Let's do this. I'm all about it. I love that Hyuga, he's like, I'll go get a drink, and he just passed out in the hallway. And then Matobe like just died, his spirit ascended, and Kiyoshi was just like had weird sweat coming off of him. It was great. But Kagami, again, as this whole set of episodes is nothing but shipping fuel. Because as we have the OT3 established between Kagami, or between Kiyoshi, Hyuga, and Riko, at the same time, the ship of Kagami and Riko set sail even further out to sea as he's able to cook and teaches her how to make curry. And we get Kagami's past has been very quiet and we've not talked about it. There's that little scene in the ED where we see a shadow of somebody with the ring like he has, and I'm like, okay, we're going to get something on that eventually. But what I like is that we're getting little breadcrumbs, and in this episode we get the breadcrumbs. He's like, well, I cook for myself, so I have to know how to cook. It's like, So he clearly probably lived by himself in America, or maybe with like another relative, but he lives by himself here in Japan, so he has to cook for himself. It's like, okay, you make things for yourself. All right. Makes sense. And yeah, I don't ship Riko and Kagami, but based on this episode, if somebody said they did ship them, I could see it. I'm all right with it. I think she has a lot of moments with Kagami in episode 22 as well, where she's like, Baka, get it. Like, I could see the shipping between Kagami and Riko. I could definitely see it going down. But yeah, they go to the beach. Daddy's money is a physical therapist buying them basketball goals that look sweet as hell and putting them on the beach. I love it. Riko comes from some cash. And I love that the dad, he's like got the glasses down. He's like, if you touch my daughter, I'll kill you. And all of them, it's like, dude, there is no worries with this crew. They're all like, don't worry. And the only one nervous is Hyuga. He's just like, oh my God, that's her dad. I'm like, Hyuga, you're the only one worried about possibly doing anything with Riko? Okay, fuel my ship some more. Go right ahead. Hyuga's the only one that feels threatened. But I love the idea of the beach training. Yeah, if you've ever been to the beach and tried to do like any type of exercise, there's more like resistance with the sand. And so you're training like your core. There's more strength like issues with it. Like you're building up your stamina, your endurance, your balance. They can't dribble because it's the sand. So they have to work on passing one another and their coordination. It's a really smart idea to have them train on the beach. I imagine when they go to the mountains, it's going to be building up like endurance that way in a different form. So that's going to be curious to see if we get the training in the mountains. I don't know by the end of the season, if we're going to get that or not. Right. But it's helping them to make improvements. And Kiyoshi's noticing that, yeah, it's helping the team. Like this training camp was a good idea. And Riko seems to doubt herself. She's like, I don't know if this is enough. She's like, I don't know if it's going to be enough to really help us. And Kiyoshi has faith in her. And she's like, I don't know. She's like, maybe you should have been captain. And he's like, mm-mm. And we established that in episode 22, why he shouldn't be a captain. And we'll touch back on that. But he's like, no. He's like, I have faith in Hyuga. He needs to be the captain. He'll kick him in gear. You need the more bad cop in that situation. And I don't see Kiyoshi as a bad cop. No. But he's like, you're doing fine. And Riko's like, we just need a spark. We need something to get him motivated. And ask and you shall receive, because as much as adorable as Kuroko's bedhead is, his bedhead is freaking adorable. As cute as it is, Midorima and Takao just showing up, I'm like, I'm here for it. If Takao and Midorima just want to like tag team and like team up at every location every season, I'm here for it. And Shitoku, of course, is practicing at the same place that they are. Of course they are. And so then they decide to have a practice game against one another. I like the Kagami. It's almost like Kagami is kind of their secret weapon because he has all this potential. But they also are trying to build up his strength again, doing like physical therapy. And it doesn't seem like anybody from Shitoku, even the coach when he's talking about it, I don't think he's on to the fact that Kagami needs to build up his strength again. He's more relating it to like the physicality of it. But sending him on the 500-meter laps to go get each drink individually, insanity. But yeah, here's the thing. Midorima, he chides. Midorima's a true tsundere, because in episode 21, I was mad at Midorima. I'm like, why are you getting onto Kuroko? Don't put him in a corner. Don't put Kuroko in a corner, right? I'm like, why do that, I was like, why are you putting Kuroko in a corner like that? Telling him that he should know his limits and he's not going to get any better than that. I'm like, Midorima, you've been a jerk. But then you realize in episode 22, you're like, no, Midorima's just a tsundere. and his language is to he does what I wanted Aomine to do in the last set of episodes. And he builds up Kagami and Kuroko to be like, get better. You're going to need to get better to face us. Come on. I want a challenge. And he's like, I want to beat you at the top of your game, right? So I liked that about Midorima. But in the moment, episode 21, I was like, quit being mean to Kuroko. I want a protection squad to form, right? And then I thought, because we see Kiyoshi come onto the scene, and everybody, and the Shitoku kind of gets a little bit wary when Kiyoshi shows up. We don't see him practice and play against them. So I feel like they're saving Kiyoshi being at his peak form for when we actually get to a legit game. I feel like they're saving that, and it's going to be in season 2, which I'm fine with. Gives me something to look forward to with season 2. But I thought when Midorima and Takao were in the bath together, I thought that what they were referring to is the fact that they had lost. I thought that maybe they'd lost a game or something, but that's not it. Midorima just feels like something's off with them. And so Kiyoshi, I really want Kiyoshi and Midorima to interact. I don't know why, but I feel like Midorima and Kiyoshi are very mentor-like figures, but in very different ways. Like Midorima, when he's talking to Kagami, he's a very harsh, like tough love teacher and is like, you're just like, get better or die sort of thing. And Kiyoshi is more like, oh, you'll get better if you just do what I tell you to do. And so that they approach their mentoring in very different ways. But I feel like the chemistry between Midorima and Kiyoshi could be really cool. And so I kind of want to see more of them together, but maybe we'll get that in season 2. I want it. And then we end episode 21 with Kagami just being freaking ripped. Kagami's like just ripped. He comes in like just nothing but abs and biceps and back muscles. And Riko's just like, if he keeps this up. I like Riko saying like he's putting in all this extra practice. And if he keeps doing it, he's going to be a very, very powerful player. Like the work is gonna show itself in what he does. But Riko is trying to get him. She knows he's putting in the extra work. She's trying to steer him in a direction with it, but at the same time, she's not trying to like steer him too much. She wants him to try to figure it out for herself. Midorima doesn't waste any time with that. He's like, I don't got time for you to figure it out. You're a baka. Here's what you need to do. Hustle up. Get better. And it's like, okay, but we'll talk about that in episode 22. So they lost all 3 games, but not by a lot. And I think it's worth noting the perspective of how Shutoku treats the victories versus how Siren treats the losses. Because Siren or Seiren or whatever, they seem rather discouraged. They're like, oh, we lost all 3 games, but we beat them in prelims. Like, are we getting worse? And Kiyoshi's like, no, like we didn't have Kagami and we kept up really well. Like for not having our trump card, we did really good. And Shutoku, on the other hand, they're viewing it like we barely beat them and they didn't have Kagami. So that means we can't slack off in the Winter Cup. And I like the idea that Midorima wants a challenge. He's kind of like Kagami in the sense that he wants to beat you at the best of your game. I like that about Midorima. I like it. But yeah, they bring out the ice buckets to help with the muscles. Having done that a few times before, it is painful. It's a painful exercise. But what I wanted to say is that no one takes Kiyoshi seriously. He tries to give this motivational speech while his like shorts are hiked up and he's in the bucket of ice, and no one takes him seriously. And that's one of the reasons why I think he could not be captain, because he's a really good mentor, and I feel like he's a good teacher. But he's kind of like, I said in the Discord, he's kind of like Yoda in Dagobah, where he shows up with Luke being like, come on, do this. And like, he's like, just has this quirky, weird way of mentoring. And I feel like it's helpful and it's really good. But I feel like he doesn't quite have that leaderly role like Hyuga does to be captain of the team. So there's that. But I like Kiyoshi's character a lot, and I like what he's there for. Him and Hyuga just sitting there having tea like a married old couple there, reminiscing and talking about what's happening. It's fun. But Kagami is training to jump. That whole sequence, oh my god, Takao just like hiding behind the bushes. Takao is a little gremlin. Takao is a gremlin. He is like he is kind of a diva. He's the Orange Skittle. He's the other Generation of Miracles player, right? Takao's kind of like, he's the Orange Skittle. He's just such a diva. But he's like hiding in the bushes to like eavesdrop. And we see him jump with his left leg and hit way above the goal. But then he goes with his right leg and nearly touches the top of it. That's insane, right? So our boy has some jumping ability and it's gotten a lot better. But I like that Kagami recognizes by the end of the episode what his weakness is. The higher leg he can jump on, he doesn't have good ball handling skills. The leg he can jump less on, he has better ball handling skills. So Kagami knows what he needs to improve on. He's well understanding of that. He knows what he needs to do. But I just love Takao hiding behind in the bushes trying to like eavesdrop. And Riko, she doesn't want to give it all away. She's like, I want him to figure out on his own. She's like, I don't want to tell him all the answers. That feels like cheating. Midorima doesn't care. And Midorima like wants to teach Kagami a lesson, but he also kind of wants to like boost his own ego while he's doing it. And I mean, the fact that Midorima waited until the horoscopes all aligned for it all to work out. Like, he couldn't have done it the night before. He couldn't have challenged him the night before. But no, he made sure that the horoscopes were aligning. Everything was set in motion before he walked out there. He had his little red bean soda. I like the consistency of this series, that he still has the same type of soda. That's fun. But yeah, he was waiting until everything was perfect before he went and challenged Kagami to a game. Right? But I love that Midorima, he does, like I said, what I wanted Aomine to do. I wanted Aomine to try to give Kagami and Kuroko hints on how to get better. And Midorima kind of does what I wanted Aomine to do, which is fun. And Takao nearly getting hit by the basketball goal, and then Kuroko showing up being like, hello. I love Kuroko. Kuroko and Takao are a very fiendish couple, because I feel like Takao would get into all sorts of shenanigans and gremlin-like antics, and Kuroko would just be along for the ride and be like, okay, I'll join you. Like, I just feel like that's the situation with them. It's great. But Midorima versus Kagami. And I like that Midorima establishes, he's like, do you think I'm just good at shooting? No. He's like, the generation of miracles, he's like, we all have special abilities that set us apart from the rest, but we all have an insanely good foundation. Like, we all were good players to start with and then developed our skills. It's like, yeah, that's the thing. The generation of miracles are all around good players that just have powers on top of it. So that's kind of why they're so OP, right? And as we're having Midorima show this to Kagami, we flash over to Izuki and Kagane, who are realizing that they need to get better to compete with the other players from Shutoku and the other teams. So they're helping to improve themselves. Midorima wants them to get better. He's a tsundere through and through. Midorima is a tsundere. He's over there like getting on to Kagami, but in reality, he wants them to get better so that they can win. So it's like, Midorima, look at you. And maybe not win, but Midorima wants them to get better to give him a challenge, right? So I love that. I love Midorima. He's just, puts on this one face when we know it's the other. It's like, come on. But yeah, one thing about Kagami's character is that no matter what ends up happening between Midorima, between all this, like, there's all these things that happen in these episodes that I feel with any other player, it would make them feel dejected or it would weigh them down. But Kagami, it's just like the thing with running laps to go get the drinks or facing Midorima or being challenged by Riko. Kagami, what I like about his character so much is that he treats each challenge as something that he respects and something he wants to personally accomplish. But he doesn't get dejected or lose hope if things don't work out in his favor. And that's one thing about his character I was afraid of going into this series. I was afraid of, especially with losing against Aomine, that he was going to like fall apart. But Kagami is a very strong Leo, that fire sign. He is not easily burnt out. And I like that. I like that about his character an awful lot, right? He doesn't give up and realizes what he needs to do. And I love that he's telling Kuroko, he's like, I'm just mad that Midorima had to remind me about it and Riko had to remind me. He's like, I know what I need to do. He's like, I just hate that they had to be the ones to point it out. And it's like, aw. And then one thing I did notice, when they're on the beach running, Kuroko's keeping up with him. And before, like in the EDs and stuff, we've seen Kuroko kind of farther behind. So Kuroko's getting better too, slowly but surely, right? And one thing that is curious, I don't want answers with this. I don't want anybody giving me answers or confirming or deconfirming, but I'm just going to put out there, I'm positing, like, when Kuroko says he wants to master his own drive and passes, the passes part makes sense. I'll be curious to see how Kuroko masters his drive. That part's going to be interesting. Like, what is he going to do to accomplish that? So I don't want any answers, obviously. I want to find out as we go, but it should be pretty interesting to see what he does. But he goes back to Midorima's words where he wants to improve himself in order to help the team. He can't help the team if he can't help himself. It's like, okay. And so then, yeah, I like that Riko's like, I chose this beach specifically because while we're here, before we go home, we need to watch the quarterfinals for the Inter High. And it's like, cool, we actually get to see part of the tournament. And it's To'o's team it's Toho versus Kise's team, which is Kaiga, right? It's these two teams versus each other in the quarterfinal. I like that it's the quarterfinal, like not the semifinals, not the finals, just like the quarterfinal. No, like big stakes, but nothing crazy. That means they have to face other teams after this, right? And so we get to go see both teams getting ready for the game. I honestly like this in sports series. As much as I like following teams around, I also like seeing like the opponent teams and how they differ from Siren and like what their whole situations are. I like seeing that. And we get to see with Kise's team, they don't take their coach seriously. They kind of joke about him and like his baby face clean shave, right? But we get to meet a few other members of Kise's team. Moriyama, who is obsessed with girls. I feel like the girl he was talking about that he's gonna win over, I feel like it's Momoi. I felt like he was like obsessed with Momoi, and I'm like, oh honey, she ain't into you, hun. But Moriyama, he's this smooth looking guy that's obsessed with girls. Kise's getting gifts from his fans, and he's like, should I eat this questionable object that might be poisoned? And they're like, no. And we find out that Aomine inspired Kise to play, because of course he did. He didn't inspire Kuroko to play, but he did connect with Kuroko in the OVA that I wasn't supposed to see yet. And with Kise finding out that he inspired him to play, we got that in the next episode, the tip-off one. It's like, okay, we'll talk about that in a minute, but inspiring him to play. Kise's team, I was actually kind of like, really? You're going to stand them up in the quarterfinals again? But he wants to play Kise really badly. And shows up already warmed up. That does say something to me too. In the Yaoi Super Bowl that I'm doing over on Patreon, there were several couples with Aomine. There was like 3 Aomine couples that were nominated, but the one that won, that had the most nominations, was Aomine and Kise. And at the time, a few weeks ago, I was like, why? I knew they were Generation of Miracles, but I was like, I don't get why you guys voted that ship the most. I get it now. And I feel like in the next 3 episodes, I'm really gonna get it. And so I'm like, oh no! So I was like, okay, cool. But yeah, I was curious. I feel like it's kind of an insult to the Kise. I feel like it's an insult to the Kuroko and Aomine ship, because he was able to sleep through Aomine. Again, but then Kuroko and Aomine are exes, so it makes sense he slept through the game. He's given Kagami a chance. But with Kise, other than Kasamatsu, Kise ain't got nobody else. So Amine's like, hey bestie, what's up? God. The fact that Aomine shows up, already warmed up, ready to go for the game, but then has like that murder face on where he's just like, I can crush Kise all I want. And poor Momoi's like, oh my God. That made me think of a couple things. One, he takes Kise more seriously, or maybe could be shipped harder with Kise than Kuroko and Kagami. 2, it instantly made me go back and think of when Kise said he was bullied by some of the other Generation of Miracles, him and Kuroko. I'm like, is this part of that? Which would kind of undermine what I just said about the ship. And then also that he finds Kise to be a challenge, and he's never faced him one-on-one in an actual game. And so this will be something new. Either way, that murder face, it's a bit much. And the fact that he thinks he can crush Kise because he thinks Kise can take it. Because Kise, what I like about Kise's character is that he never seems to get like flustered about anything or dejected about stuff. Like he seems like he comically gets sad about things, but it's not anything that's like soul crushing, right? He doesn't seem like he gets depressed about things. He seems like he can take a hit and keep on going. I guess we'll see, right? I don't think Kise's team's gonna win, especially after Kasamatsu made that big speech about letting down his teammates the year prior. I was like, well, that's a red flag. That's a big old red flag that y'all are gonna lose, because he's worried about letting the team down. And Kise's like, oh, well, I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried about, not beating Aomine. I feel like that's gonna change. I feel like they're gonna get beaten by Aomine, because it's gonna set Aomine to be the big bad, right? And I feel like Kasamatsu is going to like step up his game as the captain, as the senpai, and be like, nope, we just keep moving on. It's fine. And I feel like Kise is going to get a dose of the team losing and what that entails, and feeling what Kasamatsu was warning him about, right? I feel like that's the way it's going to go down, but I don't know. But yeah, it's just, I get like bad vibes from how excited Aomine was to play Kise, and I'm like, ugh. And the fact that the OVA we just got was about Kise and his relationship with Aomine and Kuroko, I'm like, oh, I just feel like it's gonna go bad, and then Kuroko's gonna be there to cheer up Kise in the end. I don't know. We got 3 episodes left of season 1. So then we had this OVA, and I kept it pulled up here just to talk about Kise, our dude, freaking model. Like, look at him. Like, I do love the first outfit he wore. Again, y'all, it's blowing my mind because I forget that in this OVA, in these flashbacks, Kise was a middle schooler. He was maybe at the oldest 14, posing like a damn 18-year-old. I'm still like trying to wrap my mind around it, which I guess he's super tall and kind of built. Maybe he could pull it off, but I'm like, this guy's 14 and y'all are having him model. Okay, maybe it's for like a catalog for middle schoolers. I don't know. Some of these outfits though look pretty extravagant for a middle schooler. But yeah, he decides he's going to play club and they're like, oh, you're so youthful. I do like the image of him with the clips though. It's really super cute that he has the clips on. I think that's adorable. I like that a lot. That middle outfit, though, that he wore, the one that was, like, with the red and the plaid, no. I do like his other outfits. But, yeah, so he goes to Taiko and instantly gets... I do love Taiko's, like, their uniforms with the cardigan with the blue underneath and the tie. I do like that. I think it's cute. But she basically... Momoi comes up, looking very cute and innocent, comes up and tells him that he's been promoted to first string after 2 weeks of playing. I'm sure it's because of what Akashi said, right? Now, I did not want to see what Akashi's powers were because I did not pay attention because I was like, nope, I don't want to see it. But I have a guess, and it has to do with the fact that in the ED, he has like a different colored eye. My theory is that Akashi, the red-haired one, he can look at you and know what your power is. I feel like it's like a souped, amped up eagle eye that's like x-ray vision. I feel like he can look at you and tell what your power is. He can see your potential instantly and what you can do. And that way, and he's smart because he plays shogi, and that's kind of the illustration of him being smart. So he can see what your powers are, and then he's smart enough to figure out, kind of like Momoi, how to tackle them and overcome them. I feel like that's his ability. I feel like he's really good. He reminds me a lot like Muggsy Bogues, where he's like short but like really super talented. But I feel like his power is being able to sense abilities and know what they are. I could be wrong. Don't tell me. We'll figure out when we get there. But that's my theory. That's my crackpot theory right now. As for the center, I feel like he just has a lot of stamina because he eats all the time. And I feel like he's just really freakishly big and like a wall. I feel like he's like Aomine from Datako. Or Aone. I feel like he's from Aone from Haikyuu, from Datako, where he's just like a big brick wall that you can't get by. I feel like that's him. He's a giant center. His high-pitched voice threw me off, though. I was like, what? Because in the one flashback a few weeks ago, I thought that high-pitched voice maybe belonged to the redhead. But no, it belongs to him. I'm like, I wasn't prepared for this big, tall, imposing guy to have this squeaky voice. I was like, okay. He also seems like the most chill and like just laid back, and he's like, I don't know, as long as you guys are getting food, I guess I'll come with you. But I want to make note that throughout this entire episode and from the other OVAs, the redhead doesn't really join along with them. He's not really hanging out with any of them, right? I feel like, and my personal theory based on what we've seen with them so far, is that the redhead is the most individualistic, the most lonely, and the most like isolated from all of them, and he's the most obsessed with just winning. Like, he just wants to amass a collection of talent and put it together like it's a puzzle, and that's the strategy to win. He doesn't care about the players or anything about them. Because he said, which is kind of curious, because Midorima makes the comment that the redhead is the one that found Kuroko's power. I guess that's true. I was a little confused in the reaction, but I feel like maybe he discovered Kuroko's talent and got him on the team. But I also felt like in the OVA from season 2 that Aomine had a hand in getting him into the first string. Don't tell me if I'm right or wrong. I'm going to go back and rewatch that OVA when we get to it to see what happens. But that's curious. Very curious indeed. But yeah, the redhead gives off like super sketch vibes. I don't know how to feel about him. But yeah, so then we have the group going together, and the OVA from season 2, all these things connect, right? Because we have the group of them going out to go celebrate Kise joining the first string. And I'm sorry, but that scene of Kise walking into the gym and seeing Aomine like score for the first time and jump over him, like him seeing that, it was basically Skate the Infinity. It was basically Kise as Reki looking up at Longa doing the big like jump, right? That's exactly what it was. It was like love at first sight. It was, and seeing Aomine back before he was so much of a jerk, back when he was like happy. But yeah, it's amazing because it's literally Kise looking up and seeing Aomine there and being like, and starstruck and love at first sight. It's just like Skate the Infinity. I love it. And then, of course, most of this OVA is Kise trying to figure out what is Kuroko's deal. Why is he special? But yeah, they go out to celebrate Kise joining the first string. The tall dude is invited, this giant tall man that just eats. And I'm sorry, but all of the ships, like the Aomine and Kise ship, nah, I got it. It's here. I love the idea of them like with his arm wrapped around. Again, Aomine does not know personal space at all. He instantly wraps his arm. Aomine wraps his arms around anybody he's potentially in a ship with. In this case, either Kagami or Kise. But yeah, you could see why Kise, like you could see him slowly developing these friendships with all of them. And at first Kise is like, why do I care about this thing? Why do I care that Kuroko won the popsicle thing? Like, why do I care about all these people? And then you find out that it's like Kise, he's been a loner, but he's slowly developing these friendships with these other players. And it's kind of sweet. It's like really nice. And then it makes it all the more sad when you think back to Kuroko saying, well, we all kind of drifted apart because we started out as a unit, but then the more we won and kind of got egos about it, the more everybody started going their own way and they started drifting away from me and they all just kind of ended up going their separate ways. And it's like, it's really sad because especially when you see like fun moments like this when they're all together and then you know how things turned out, it's really heartbreaking. It's so sad. But yeah, but then somebody like Momoe, she like gets knocked down by this guy on the motorcycle, and I love that Kise instantly like goes after the guy on foot, like doesn't even hesitate. He's like, you knocked Momoe down, I'm gonna go for it. Aomine runs after him because why not? And Midorima's like, plebeians, you can't possibly stop a scooter on your own bare feet. And then he takes away the snack sticks and throws them at him, and against all odds hits the scooter because why wouldn't we? And then, yeah, the one guy steps up, the big tall center steps up, and he's more concerned about the snack sticks getting ruined than anything, but he steps up and manages to stop the robber. These middle schoolers saving the day. Look at them. But yeah, so we go back to Teiko. We see that Kise is actually he's pretty athletic, just naturally. He's pretty good at playing soccer, right? Moving his feet around, which makes sense with his powers because his powers are being a copycat. So it makes sense that Kise would be good at soccer because he's just copying the moves. Makes sense, right? Although, having the tall purple-haired guy as the goalie is hilarious because he just doesn't care. He's just sitting there yawning and eating. Oh my gosh, he's just such a giant, right? But they all say that it was the redhead's doing, putting the team together. He's quite frightful. I'm quite afraid of him. I will also never get over Midorima with the stupid frog puppet. Midorima and the frog puppet is the funniest shit I've seen like all day. Because he's got his back turned to Kise because you know there's no way that Midorima could look at him with a straight face with that damn puppet, but he's like, hello, Kise. It's like using the frog puppet to illustrate that him and Kuroko don't get along because of their blood types and because of their horoscopes. And Kise's like, what the fudge? He's like, Cancer's lucky item today is a puppet. Oh my god. He's like, Kuroko's blood type's A and mine's B, and that's why we don't get along. I cannot with Midorima. Midorima is one of my there's not really a character I don't like in this series, but Midorima is so special because he's such a tsundere. He's like so fun to watch, especially when he gets flustered. He has like the weirdest quirks with the horoscopes and the lucky items. And then he does shit like this where he's just like playing with the puppet to Kise, and Kise's like, what the hell? I just can't. I cannot with him. He's too much. He's too much. And Momoya's already smitten with Kuroko at this point. But they send Kuroko and Kise to go battle the team with the second string. And he's like, if you guys can't beat them, then you guys are going to be demoted to the second string as well. And it's like, And also we get Taiko's their banner that says 100 battles, 100 victories. Like, we don't lose. Their sole and absolute principle is winning. We don't lose. Ever. And so it's like, okay. And so Kise this whole episode has been trying to figure out what it is about Kuroko that makes him special. And he challenges Kuroko to see who can score more points, but Kuroko's like, that's not my deal. He's like, I know I'm going to lose to you. He's like, the important part of being on a team is thinking about what you should be doing. So for Kuroko, he's like, at this point in the series, Kuroko is thinking about how can I help you all shine the best? He's not thinking of himself, which in the present time he's starting to, but at this point he's not thinking about himself. He's just thinking, well, how can I help you all shine? And then he says the cool one-liner to Kise being like, I'm a shadow and you're the light that's going to score. And Kise's like, well, that was kind of cool. Okay. Like, you can see, it's funny because shipping-wise, the ship between Kuroko and Kise makes so much sense, especially now. And you can see the foundation of it in this episode and how it's developing. But the ship between Aomine and Kise is like instant. It's like one look, instant fall in love. And I'm like, oh, okay. Okay. And then they face this team, Kamagi, that are just a bunch of jerks. And the refs are kind of questionable in their judgment. And you would think that's not realistic. No, it is. When I played basketball, we faced a couple schools that we were like, the girls on those teams, they were just jerks. And the refs were like hometown refs. They wouldn't call anything. And they called fouls on us that weren't fouls. It was like, come on. And so those teams definitely exist, right? And I like that we also see the strategy here where the coach puts Kise in first to kind of like test the waters, but he saves Kuroko for the very end because he knows that Kuroko has a time limit and that we can only use Kuroko so much, which is fun. But then, yeah, everything goes really good and we see like, I want to see what their actual end score is. And I like that he's like, well, Kuroko says, I'm a shadow. He's like, and you're the light who'll score. And Kise's like, what? I love Kise's cute little face where he's like, huh? Like, Kise's so adorable. Like, I love the Generation of Miracles so far. Like, so the Generation of Miracles that we've seen so far, Kise, Midorima, and Aomine. I mean, Aomine is a jerk, but there's potential there. There's a softie underneath, right? He's just so jaded. And then you have Midorima and Kise, which I really like because their characters are so dynamic and so much fun. But they end up making it work, right? And then, of course, we kind of like that Midorima like goes into the classroom where I know nothing about the redhead. All I gather is that he doesn't have a lot of friends. He's too smart for his own good, and he's terrifying. And Midorima is like the only one that maybe gets close to him because he understands his broody darkness, right? I don't know. I just feel like I wanted to give the redhead a hug and tell him to make friends and quit being so freaking creepy. But yeah, they managed to win 83-81 by the skin of their teeth. But they won. So that's all that matters. A victory is a victory. And I like that Kise established, he's like, I don't know if I could do that, sacrificing myself. He's like, I don't think that'd be very fun. And he's like, I get that you're amazing, but is that any fun? He's like, I like that Kise is the first person we've seen so far, like in the flashbacks to establish. He's like, it's cool that you helped out as an assist and stuff, but how much fun is that? If you're just helping me win, like you're not doing anything for yourself. You're sacrificing yourself for others. He's like, is that really fun? Like, are you okay with that? And Kuroko kind of seems to think about it. And then he goes, no. And Kise goes, even as I said it, I realized he's not thinking about sacrifice. And Kise kind of has like a foot and mouth moment. He's like, oh, I probably said too much. But Kuroko's like, and he's like, that's why he's amazing. And Kuroko says, it's not fun. What I'm doing isn't fun. He says, even less if we lose. His pure desire for victory. So it's interesting at that point, Kise, knowing Kuroko, realizes that Kuroko, in the beginning, when they were first on the team together, Kuroko was all about the we just need to win mentality. And he's like, yeah, I'm not having fun being in this assist role, but it's even less fun if we lose. So it's like, we should want the better of the two options, right? Neither option is good, but we're going to choose the better one. And that's kind of sad because then we realize when Kuroko's telling Kagami, he's like, I couldn't take it anymore. He's like, basketball wasn't fun anymore. And I didn't like that we were just winning, but we weren't a team. And so you can see like the seedlings of that here with Kise and him. And I like that him and Kise seem like the first two to really like bond and kind of talk about this sort of thing of the group, right? I mean, we get that him and Aomine sort of did as well, but Kise kind of like, I feel like Kise is good at getting at the root of the problem and at the root of situations, right? And being a little more introspective, which is not what I pictured Kise being like at the start of the series. So that's fun. And then of course, Kuroko hates his nickname. He's like, oh, I add Ichi to any name that I respect. And Kuroko's like, oh, please don't. And then he does it anyway. He's like, why not? He's like, no. He's like, I'm going to keep doing it. Anyway, Kurokuchi. He's like, I might really get into basketball. And that is what makes Kuroko smile. And he's like, oh, well, cool. He's like, well, if you're going to get into basketball, then I guess it's okay. And then we all know how it goes down. But I like, it's so fun to see Kuroko and Kise in this episode. Only 22 episodes in. Only 22. But when we first saw them, like in episode 3, their attitudes, like there was so much mystery surrounding them. And now we're starting to peel back the layers and realize what all is there. And it's really cool. I like it a lot. I'm like, all right. Okay. But yeah, so... these episodes. I'm glad we didn't get a whole lot with Akashi and the purple-haired one. I'm glad we didn't get too much with them. I want to keep them as secret as we can until we meet them in the actual series. But that was a good OVA, setting up Kise and Kuroko's relationship and how they first met, getting that backstory checked off the list, right? Getting that backstory checked off. What I like about these OVAs is that they keep tying back some of the same moments, only now we're getting more and more context for them, which is fun, and seeing them from different perspectives, which is fun. I like that a lot. But yeah, so episodes 21, 22 were really good. Setting up goals, setting up things to work on for season 2. But I feel like the next 2 episodes at least are going to be about Kise versus Aomine. And then we'll have episode 25 will wrap up the season. I feel like that's what we're about to do. That seems legit, right? That seems pretty much like where we're headed to. But man, these are really good episodes. I felt like I rambled, but I was just like so giddy with all the energy from what was going on, and all the humor and everything was on point. I loved it. So I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. Please, no spoilers for what's to come. I'm going to predict that Kise's team's going to lose, but who knows? Who knows what'll happen, right? I guess we'll find out, eh? So I hope you enjoyed this reaction discussion. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. But yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah. Oh, by the way, I didn't talk about the in cards or the ED. I'm trying to wrap this up too quickly. No, we're not ready to go yet. Huckleberry knows. But I did want to talk about the in cards and the ED. So why am I wrapping this up so quickly? Fake out. I do want to talk about the in cards. We had 2. We had one, which was Riko and Kiyoshi. Again, we're just shy of Hyuga to fuel the OT3. But again, if you're going to ship those 2 together, I get it. I see it. I thought that was super cute. I personally like Kiyoshi more as a support for Riko. That he's like the BFF that's supporting her. And then Hyuga I romantically ship with her. But I could see that. And then this other in card, y'all, can we have an OT4? Can we have an OT square? Can we have an OT square? We need an OT square. Yeah, we need a poly square at this point because you got Kagami and Midorima shipping together. You've got Kuroko and Kagami shipping together. Kagami and Kuroko and Midorima I don't really ship together because they don't like each other according to Midorima. And then obviously of Midorima and Takao. Look at Takao, like all seductive next to Kuroko, like, hey Kuroko, like just getting all seductively snuggled next to Kuroko, and Kuroko's like, what do I do? I love it. I absolutely love it. I definitely can ship Kagami and Kuroko and Midorima and Takao, and I could see Midorima and Kagami after this episode. I could see it. And I could see Kuroko and Takao. I can see it. I don't see Kagami and Takao or Midorima and Kuroko, but if you want to mix and match your ships, I could see it. But that one's really good. I like that end card a lot. And then we didn't get an end card with the 22.5, which is sad. But we do have 2 end scenes. The one, though, that gets me is that in the last set of episodes when they were drawing straws and picking their teams, apparently Kise did get Midorima to switch with him. Apparently he did get Midorima to switch. So on a team together, you have Kuroko and Kise, and it looks like, I'm trying to see who it is. I guess is it Kasama? Is it Takao? It's Takao. You have Kise, Takao, and Kuroko on a team together, which would be pretty badass. And then on the other team, you have all the guys with glasses. So you have Momoe and Riko watching and cheering on Imayoshi and Midorima and Hyuga, the 3 guys with glasses. I like to imagine that Riko's cheering on Hyuga, but then it's like Momoe is cheering on Imayoshi. So there you go. But I love that Kuroko's doing like the little glasses thing with his face. He's doing that. It's cute. And they're all laughing about them all having glasses on the same team. It's really cute. I like it a lot. But yeah, those were really good end cards and the end credits additions they added on. So I can't believe I almost forgot that. But yeah, so now that we've talked about that, as always, I hope you all have a good week. Please stay safe, take care, and it's hard to believe, but next week we will be rounding out season 1 with episodes 23, 24, and 25. I'm really hyped. So I hope you all are too. But I'll see you next week with those last 3 episodes of season 1 of Kuroko's Basketball. Bye.